Today, one of my most favourite snakes of all, and that's the cottonmouth. It just looks awesome when it opens its mouth and you see all those fangs. In fact, all the vipers do, whether it's the American copperhead, all those rattlesnakes, they look great. When they open their mouth, it's like, man, that's just awesome. That's what we're drawing today, the cottonmouth. So I'm lucky enough to experience the cottonmouth up close and personal, and it is ferocious looking, but left alone it sort of tries to warn you. It's not a dangerous snake. It is a snake that just doesn't want to be bothered by humans, and you'll find that is the case with most snakes. They don't want to be bothered by humans, they just want to do their own thing. But having that close personal contact with a cottonmouth has somehow in my heart made it very close to me. I really love this species so much. I just think it looks so beautiful. So that's why I'm doing the how to draw a cottonmouth, because I just love the species so much. Okay, one of the interesting things is the shape of the head. It sort of slants like that. And so you think about where the eye is. When the snake's mouth is completely open, it can still see. Because where that eye is, it can see past its mouth while it's wide open. So that's an interesting shape. Also, the ridge above that eye protects the snake's eye from grass as it slides through foliage. An absolutely wonderful design for a snake that wants to open its mouth to look impressive. It's got its mouth open, it can still see me. I'm going to start off with a sort of a triangle-y shape. It's going to be an open mouth. And just popping a few shapes here. You can follow along if you like. Let's put a picture up in the corner to show what the finished snake looks like, so you know where I'm going with this. So when I put these pencil lines down, they're not always perfect the first time, and sometimes I have to change my mind. So I'm just concentrating on the head at the moment, working out where the eye is going to be. Marking out a few of the scales here. And trying to get that sort of a slant of the nose. So roughly marking out where the fangs are going to go. And interestingly, on the inside here between the fangs are another row of teeth. So you're going to have a look at a bit of mouth anatomy here. So here I'm putting down some strong muscles that go from the cheeks down to the lower jaw. Right here is where the windpipe's going to be. A little slit there is where the tongue goes. That's the bit of the windpipe. You can see I'm just doing little corrections. So even if you put down the lines and the wrong, it's a start. You always make a start. You can always correct. Now I'm marking in some scales. The top lip and the bottom lip of the cottonmouth, it's very pale, nice sort of almost vanilla-y creamy colour with a nice chocolate stripe above that. We'll get to that stripe later. Now we're working on the lips, which are very light, and because they're light we see the scales very clearly. So remember to pause this video whenever I go too fast You can pause it, slow it down and copy along. And those scales are popping around the corner here, a little bit smaller around there because they're further away. There's the other side of the mouth. And there's the top lip scales on the other side of the mouth there. Defining a few of those scales a bit more. We've made quite a good start on this. Flatten that a little bit. Just going to pop the eye in here. Little splash of where the light's going to be. And a little bit of shade there. Now I'm going to pop some scales here. It's going to be a line of scales around the eyes. Just behind the eye there, it's going to be quite dark. So these scales that I'm marking out now, just going to put a little stripe there, that's going to be all dark scales. And occasionally when you watch this video, I'll pop in the corner of the picture the finished drawing so you can sort of see what the finished one's going to be like. Bit of throat there. See how I make those scales a little bit flatter. Knocking out a few lines here, little brick pattern that gets smaller and narrower as it gets to the top there, because those scales are wrapping around the body, and below we've got longer sort of belly scales here somewhere. A little bit of shading there. See how I put the pencil to the side? That often helps with the shading. Makes the shading go a lot faster. Popping in the first fang there. And copy along. So with the inks, I'm going over most of the lines I've just done. I'm using a paintbrush. Now you can use a couple of markers if you want. I like the paintbrush because it gives nice and thick and thin lines. Very smooth, organic looking lines. You can sometimes get a marker pen that has like a brush nib on it. Or you can just go over the line a couple of times to make it thick or thin. Whatever you're most comfortable with. I actually just like the paintbrush. So doing some of the muscles inside the mouth there. A little dark patch there in the center. See, I just do like almost like flat brackets there under there. And here where the brick wall is, each of those little bricks is being replaced by a scale. I think one of the things I like about the paintbrush is that it's not quite perfect. That gives it sort of this rough, almost cartoony sketch look to it. So you see where I'm using the one brush for different thicknesses. You could use a range of different thick marker pens if you don't have a brush. I'm using Indian ink. What I like about Indian ink is it's waterproof. Once it's dry, you can put watercolour over it if you wish. So behind the eye, I'm doing the scales extra thick there because that's going to be dark scales. And above those extra thick ones, where it's going to be light, I do very thin scales. So much finer line around there, dark above the eye, but fine above that. Still pretty much following the guidelines I put down before. So now what I'm doing is rendering a bit of shade. A bunch of lines next to each other makes a good grey tone. On the side there I'm putting an image of the finished mouth open, and you can copy that, but you can also see how I'm doing it. I hope that's handy for you. Just doing a little bit about their little breathing hole there. Just in front of that breathing hole is a little slit where the tongue comes out. Usually when you see the mouth wide open on a snake, usually the tongue's retracted back in out of the way so it doesn't get damaged. I imagine that tongue's very sensitive. It's working on more of the muscles in the mouth. So what you're learning here with this cottonmouth, you could also do the same with a lot of the other pit vipers, even rattlesnakes. Really slightly different shaped head. The rattlesnake, the nose wouldn't be so pointy. Okay, so now I'm going to shade this. What I'm going to do is sort of directional shading. See how I'm shading it to try and describe that sort of slope that goes into the mouth. Do a little bit of eye detail when I get to the eyes. Again, if you're not using a brush, you'd want to use a really fine marker for this. You can see how fine I can get lines with just one brush. So if you learnt anything from this, you learnt that brushes are pretty cool. This is about a number 2 brush. It's a round brush. It's got a pointy tip, so you can see I can get quite a lot of variations in that. So I'm only using the one brush to do the whole drawing. Probably noticed that I've sped up bits here and there, and that's just so the video is not going to be too slow. To do this, it actually took me about 23 minutes total. So it's a bit of a quick one, but still I'm sure you're not going to want to sit through 20 minutes of me prattling on while I'm slowly inking. So I'll speed up a few bits. You can see as I'm doing these scales here, this is the dark stripe behind the eye. I am putting the lines very close together, but notice I leave a little bit of a white highlight on each scale where the light's hitting the top of the scale. So I can vary the tone on each scale depending on how close I put those lines together. So just having a look through the book here. This is my North American Field Guide to Reptiles. When I find the cottonmouth, I just want to look at some of the patterns on the neck. Beautiful patterns. So this duller one here. So what I'm going to do is make some of these neck scales dark, like I've done that stripe, to try and imitate some of the patterns that they might have there. So that the scales are going to be dark, now I'm going to do sort of lighter grey ones around them. Make sure these dark ones are really dark. Just want them to stand out from the lighter ones. So, just a little bit on each of those lighter ones so they don't look too stark white. Sometimes when you're doing a drawing you want nice big white areas, other times you just want it to sort of blend in a little bit, more grey tone like you saw in the book. It's very beautiful, subtle tones of browns and darks. Also, I often like to put just little imperfections here and there, little dots, little wiggles, just so that it just doesn't look too empty in places. I like to make it look not perfect. And guess what I've just done? I've just put a smudge mark on my drawing. So I might have to do something with that. I've just finished putting the little wiggly lines here and there. Little dots, dashes, wiggles. Just to make the drawing a little bit more interesting. Wow. I have to put a bit of ground there. Or maybe a bit of grass or something in the background. It's one of the things, you know, if it's digital, you just press Control Z. But it's not digital, so sometimes you just have to make something up out of that. And that was how to draw a cottonmouth. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Check out some of my other videos, which I'll pop here. I'll see you in the next video.